Hello, wild ones. I wanted to come talk about some things that have been in my field today and recently, and if any of you are feeling big things like I have been, there's a lot happening in the skies. There's a lot of retrograde energy that's happening, which invites us to pause and reflect and return and revise and review all the RE words, retrograde and RE energy, prescription energy, medicine energy. And there's a lot of profound shift that's happening this month, especially beginning, I believe, today, if not tomorrow. So if you've been feeling lots of big things, and if especially there have been things that feel like they're touching inner child original wounding, I want to just say I see you and I feel you, and you're not alone. And this is why it's all of the work and the way that I live is what I choose to do, because of what I understand and what I've experienced and continue to experience in the human experience, in my experience as a whole being and someone who's always working to reclaim wholeness and integrate all aspects of self and nourish my inner child and tend the original wounding that is also my treasure, right? It is the gift, it is the blessing, and it is part of what our souls incarnate in these bodies, in these particular lives, in this particular timeline, with our particular parents in our particular place, with our particular lovers, our particular children, our particular jobs and challenges that all are part of the process of experiencing our original wounds, learning through them, feeling the feelings fully, letting them be fully expressed, letting Eros move through us, and letting us be excited by or turned on by or moved toward and compelled toward experiences in our life that teach us, that guide us, and then invite us into an integration and metabolism process with all that is most exciting to us, most interesting to us, most compelling to us, and because of the paradoxical nature of the universe, probably also presents significant challenges to us and lessons to us, so that we can experience more of ourselves, so that we can experience more of those original wounds, so that we can see more of the inner child that has those original wounds that are actual treasures, and begin to shift and see them as treasures and power sources, and learn how to let them guide us and teach us, and how to resource them, right? Bring integration and reclamation and actual resources to those particular wounds, and invite us into more of our human wholeness, psychologically, emotionally, somatically, in the body, relationally, sexually, which is also very in the body, but also sexual energy is Eros, life force energy. It's creative energy. And I think that many of us have, well, I know that many people have sexual trauma. I know that many people have sexual fear or aversion, right? Like it's a shadow in the collective consciousness, collective psyche, that it is then reflected in the individual psyches and lives of many beings. And even if you don't have sexual trauma in your lived experience, you likely have some kind of epigenetic sexual trauma or some kind of creative life force, creativity shadow, right? And so I, for example, don't have physical sexual trauma from this lifetime. I know that there is sexual trauma in my immediate bloodline, like in the most recent 3-4 generations of women that I've come from. And we have to remember that we have lived inside the bodies of our grandmothers as well. There's a beautiful monarch butterfly flying by in the yard. Thank you. But I certainly have Eros wounding or creative wounding, shadow, and this has been part of my personal reclamation journey. So let me kind of backtrack a bit, because I want to talk about Eros and creativity and life force and source consciousness and how that moves through us. I want to talk about inner child, original wounding, and how that becomes a power source when we get into that work and into that shadow play and into the integration process and some of the metabolism of the things that we uncover, especially the metabolism that comes through movement and somatic experiencing and dance, and touch a little bit on my erotic empress offering, which is, and even just all of my offerings, everything I'm talking about is related to offerings that I share. So that could be counseling work, it could be potions, it could be erotic empress, it could be any of the workshops that are brewing in my life. And I want to talk about homeschooling, unschooling, road schooling, and how we can not avoid the original wounding, because that is unavoidable, right? The original wounding is part of our soul blueprint. So I want to talk a little bit about that too, the soul blueprint and soul purpose, and how we can raise today's children protecting their erotic life force, encouraging it, celebrating it, and inviting them to be in that divine intelligence, that divine consciousness that wants to move through, that Eros that wants to move through uninhibited, in ways that are more in the integrity with soul and less in the socially normative constructs that are man-made and artificial and often extremely pervert or extremely oppose the natural laws, right? And we as humans are made of nature. We are nature, so our bodies don't understand the typical modern day schooling and things. And I'm speaking about this coming from like 15 plus years working in like professional public education systems, settings, working in private education systems, working with special needs children and families, working in clinical settings, working in behavior therapy and educating in the community, in homes. As an early childhood school director, I have had a lot of experience with this. Working as a dance teacher and working with families who are exploring creative education for their children and coming from all different kinds of backgrounds, and then how that's all shaped the work that I do now with counseling and creating my own offerings and integrating with other creative communities and other creative evolutionary artists who are offering workshops and retreats and learning experiences for and metabolism experiences for self-discovery and greater integrity of our human wholeness and erotic flow state that then is part of creating a personal, individual paradigm shift in consciousness, in freedom in the body, in freedom of expression and inhabiting, taking up the full breadth of our humanness and creating communities and cultures where that is the heartbeat. Hello, my love. I thought you might wake up. Come on. Come on. So we'll see how this gets to go because my little one just woke up. But so some of what I've been navigating lately, and it's been going on a lot this year. Watch out for the poopa. Come here. How was your nap? Oh, poop. There was just a little bit of dog poop there. Say hi. This is my little one, Oren, And so when I'm talking about inner child stuff and I'm talking about unschooling and I'm thinking about, you know, what my experiences have been, it's not sunset yet. We're not going to walk toward the road though, okay? So can you sit with Mama? Can you sit with Mama? Do you want to have any milk?
Baby.
Yeah, come here. Do you want to have some milk? Let's see how this goes because this little boy is extremely busy. We might have to shift locations. Should we go in the backyard so we can play?
Play.
Come on, let's go in the backyard.
No.
Come on this way. No. That's towards the road. Come this way. So, yeah, this way. Let's go this way and get your ball. So, yeah, when I am doing so much of the work that I do, the sunset will be later. It is important and for me about creating a world that is worthy of this magical little being right here and helping him to be all that he already is without infringing upon that as much as I possibly can, and allowing him to be a guide and a leader for me and for others, and creating and participating in communities that are, let's get your basketball, that hold that at the center, that hold children and maternal values at the center. And creative values, because maternal values are creative values, because mothers are inherently erotic and creative. That is literally what it means to be a mother. Here you go. That's literally what, like, I think mothers might be the most erotic thing. And so maternal values at the center of community are what protect the integrity of Eros and freedom and creative expression and well-being for children. And they are the closest to source. Children have just emerged from source, from the primordial pool of everythingness. And so they are the most divinely intelligent beings because they're the most pure, they're the most uninhibited. Their original wounds have not yet started to guide them. Their original wounds get to be experienced in their earliest years of their lives, or at some point, usually it's the earliest years. And so they are the closest to source. They have incarnated with this purity of source consciousness. And so when we can protect that and we can encourage their creative expression and we can encourage their autonomous leadership, then we can shape communities and cultures around that in a way that is generative for everyone, because now we're creating more opportunity for those of us who have experienced more traumatic things in our lives and have more original wounding and or more significant trauma that impacts us. We can start to heal that inside of communities and cultures that actually want us well and actually invite us into the slowness and into exploration through the body and value the kinds of experiences that help us to do that reclamation work, that integration work, that shadow work, that shadow play, that inner child play, and that wholeness work, and invite us into our own, leave that there. Invite us into our own erotic expression in a very liberated way, so that now we become more pure, a more clear channel, and more guided by source as well. You got it? The pavement is hot. We should go on the grass. Oren, Come on the grass with your ball. The pavement is hot. Get your ball. So this is the work that I do. And I'm going to continue. I am in the process of continuing to grow in my collaboration with other beings and other communities to further support this work in ways that have more impact. And I do this work right now through counseling, through my Erotic Empress course. And yeah, I'm growing and brewing more workshops and things that will facilitate this for more people. And then I make potions as well that support this erotic flow state and nervous system capacity and things that invite us into more right relationship with everything that I'm talking about. So some of what I've been experiencing lately around my own original wounding is abandonment issues, abandonment sensitivities, right? And so the original, the like main core original wounds are abandonment, rejection, and betrayal. And so, and I think that I find that we may all have a little bit of all of them, and or there may be seasons of life where we experience some of those wounds a little bit more profoundly than others, or like we cycle through them. Like maybe in this season I feel like it's abandonment, but previously I thought it was rejection, or maybe I kind of can still see betrayal, like self-betrayal and relationship betrayal and things that comes through for me. But I do think that there's like an original one that is coming through more from childhood experiences. And so for me, I feel like even without going into all of my life story, all of my childhood, and I think what I'm going to share is maybe even the most profound, because it's literally out of our control, but simultaneously in our control with the way that we've incarnated into the world. Because I do believe that our souls choose to incarnate, and I do believe that our souls choose the story, that they do choose the path and the how that it all comes to be. Even though we don't know the how, and we're not supposed to know the how consciously, but on a soul level, we've signed up for this how. What's up, baby? Do you want to get anything from the basement to play? I'll open it so you can get what you need from the basement to play while Mama's doing her video. So remember your ball is in there, your bubbles are in there, your bubble mower is in there, if you want to get some toys. So without going into like my early childhood experiences that could illuminate different things about feeling abandonment, because we also have to acknowledge and recognize, and everybody can do it differently however they want to. I acknowledge and recognize, and I encourage people that I counsel to recognize that our parents are growing up with us, and they're learning about being human all the time too, including now, including when we were children. No one is perfect, and so I want to get away from like telling stories that can feel like I'm blaming certain things on my parents. That's not what this is about. There are circumstances that happen in our lives that have an impact on us, regardless of who is involved. And in our earliest life, usually it's our parents and our primary caregivers that are significantly part of those earliest experiences that shape us and that create those original wounds, regardless of whether or not those wounds are anybody's quote unquote fault, right? They're just this divine design for our soul's fullest expression to have that possibility to come into our full soul's expression in our lifetime. So I'm gonna get out of talking about stuff that's like my parents did this or this happened. I'm going to talk about my birth story, and I think that this is a huge important one for most people to look at in our original wounding and the original trauma of birth. the original trauma of birth, because birth is traumatic. It's literally an initiation. It's literally a change from one state of being into another. It's a literal transformation from being in source, in the primordial pool of everythingness, the uncreated, to coming into form in utero, growing in water. So now we've come from whatever the primordial pool of source consciousness is, whatever that prima materia is, everything maybe. Come on, get off the pavement if it's hot. Every element and more. And then we come into the womb, into the elements of earth in the tissues and the elements of water in the womb. And we are still in a liminal state, right? We're of the earth, but we're not emerged from our mother's bodies yet. So we're still also like in this incubatory sleep state where we're still connected to source consciousness. It's a very unique and divine medial place to be in. And then we're born out of that through intense pressure and spiraling and squeezing, and blood and fluid are all part of it, and an emergence into air for the first time, and physical separation from our mothers. It is highly traumatic and highly beautiful, as is the paradoxical nature of the universe. Everything is both and. Always. Everything is always both and. And so that is something to keep in mind when we're talking about original wounding. But so I want to talk about my original wounding, which feels like in this season, it's stepping forward as abandonment. And it is showing up in very loud ways in my nervous system. And so let's start with the origin. My birth story, very quickly. My mother was induced. She was not dilating. She was in the hospital for 2-3 days before I was actually born. And because she had had back surgeries previously, when she was not dilating and they had to deliver me via C-section. So now we're also talking about the trauma of surgery and being pumped full of medications in the womb. But she had to have a C-section for me to be born because she had back surgery. She couldn't have the local anesthetic. She couldn't have the epidural anesthetic and be awake and present for me to be born. So she had to be put out completely for the C-section. And that meant that my father could not be in the operating room either, because it wasn't necessary for him to be there as a birth support because my mother wasn't conscious. So now, go ahead, go inside where it's cooler. I know your feet are hot on the pavement. Here, Mama will help you get inside so that you can find some toys you might like. And we can also get your shoes if you want. So go ahead, go get your toys. You want your bubble mower? Go look around and see what you want. So my father couldn't be in the operating room. So I was born into an operating room. So talk about feeling abandoned by like home and comfort, right? Because not only I'm not just being born into a delivery room, I'm being born into an operating room. My mother is unconscious and my father is not there. So when we're talking about original abandonment, come on, quick. When we're talking about original abandonment, out of their control, right? Out of their control. That was my original story of coming into the world. I came into this world, quote unquote, feeling alone or with no one that I knew. So that in and of itself, let alone all of the other things that I could identify as things that feed an abandonment wound in my life story. That is an original wound. And it is showing up in my life right now in the ways that I self-abandon and the ways that when I feel emotionally abandoned by people I love, I feel destabilized. And when I say destabilized, I mean like I'm collapsing in my nervous system in that moment, not like destabilized overall, but it is a very activating event for my nervous system lately. And there's lots of reasons for that. Like I said, would you like some milk? Whoa. Would you like some milk? How do you ask? My love, how do you ask? Please. Very nice. So yeah, feeling a need for emotional support, co-regulation. Yeah, I definitely believe that I'm worthy of that. And I also know that the extremes to which my system has been, trying not to give you all nipple shots, even though you might like that, but I know that Facebook will not like that. So when I am feeling emotionally abandoned or physically abandoned by myself and or others, whether that is people actually are leaving me in a moment, people actually are not helping me process through a difficult moment, not having a conversation with me, not helping me with hard things, or I am not helping myself navigate hardship, or I am not helping myself be well, I'm not taking good care of myself, not exercising, not eating, not feeding my erotic nature. I'm feeling big, activating experiences around that right now. And so my abandonment wound is being activated for earrings, for the opportunity to reclaim and do some of the shadow work and do some of the integration work that is going to benefit me in doing, so that I can bring wholeness to and resource more of those original wounds, that original abandonment wound, and figure out how to have a more well-rounded way of receiving what I need, to have more resources in my own being and in my life, actual people or activities or exercises, or just of any way that you want to define a resource. And so this is a time that I feel like is really primed. What? Cars. Primed for us to be able to do some of this inner child shadow work and integration work. And something that I love to be able to do with any shadow or original wounding is looking at the right that we have within that thing. So just because we have a wound around something, and just because we have a responsibility to bring resource to that thing, that it's not everyone else's responsibility to fix it for us. It's not even necessarily our responsibility to fix it either, because it's part of a catalyst to our fullest expression and our soul's expression. And that's probably a significant reason why I do the work that I do, right? Because if I have an abandonment wound, then I want to be someone who is part of the resources and community for others to navigate their own wounding and to come into more of their own wholeness, and to not feel abandoned or alone in the process of coming into their fullest expression. And we never are alone. We really do need each other, but we live in a modern world that is not always actually facilitating us having the community in the way that our bodies and our psyches expect, because we're still very much like our primal ancestors in terms of our evolution, in terms of just like what our body and our brain does. And so So we have an expectation for the village, and we have an expectation for elders and things that we just don't really, and when I'm talking about elders, I'm not just talking about old people, because our world has that. I'm talking about mature, psychologically mature elders, people who have been initiated many, many times by their own choice, by crisis, and who have worked through it themselves and with community and with elders, and developed the skills and the resilience to mature into a kind of wisdom that is really generative and holds the integrity of these cultures with maternal values and creative values that I'm talking about, and protects children. And so with my feeling this like abandonment wound that is surfacing, it is speaking loudly to me, and it is inviting me into ways to reclaim the rights within abandonment. So abandonment would be like being left alone by people who are supposed to love you and help take care of you, like parents, like lovers, like spouses, like friends, like sisters and brothers, potentially, right? And that village that I'm talking about, and ourselves. And, well, would you like more water? What are you saying? Touch. All done touching? That's fine. You can be all done touching. So thank you for your patience with me as I navigate all of the stimulus that's going on around me and still try to bring this transmission through, because it felt like it was an important one to share. And I could write about it, but it's feeling more like authentic for me to just share how I speak, because that is authentically how transmissions come through me, and it is a significant part of how working with me is going to look. And, you know, I'm not just going to be talking at you the whole time, but a significant part of how my magic flows through is through my voice and through speaking, and then through the rituals and experiences that I offer. Stay this way, my love. Stay this way. The cars are up there, so stay down here. So, hi. So I feel like, you know, whenever we're experiencing extreme demonstrations of activation in our bodies, in our nervous systems, that can be pointing us toward some original wounding. And can we look at those feelings, those extremely strong feelings that we're having of activation? Stay out of the front yard, sir. Should we go inside to play? Or have a snack? Let's go inside and have a snack. Eat. Do you want to go have some fruit? Come on, let's go. Whenever we're experiencing those sensations, that can be an opportunity for us to go, what is deeper here? And what is that telling me about my original wounding, and what wants to be resourced, and what is the original treasure or right inside of that original wound? So if we have, for example, an abandonment wound, then we might recognize that part of the gift or the treasure or the right within that is that we have a right to be helped. We have a right to not be left alone. We have an actual biological need to be helped and to have community for our thrival, for us to actually physically survive. And when we think about other wounding like rejection or betrayal, the core sensation or the core right within that is pretty similar, right? We have a right to have people who are not going to stab us in the back and who are going to be there for us and who are going to be honest and authentic with us and actually show up for us and be true. With rejection, we have a right to have people who are not going to say hateful things about us or tell us that they can't be close to us because they can't handle our humanness, and so that we can continue to have community and people that we can rely on and count on, right? So at the core of each of these wounds is the need for unity and togetherness and community. And whenever we're looking at, specific circumstances around the activation. So if someone is not making themselves available to us, we might feel all sorts of projections. Oh, they're selfish. Oh, they're just, emotionally unintelligent. They're abusive, whatever. However, there's so many different ways that, right, that we can make it about someone else. They're the problem. They did the wrong thing. They did the bad thing. It's not me. And so to be able to look at some of those sensations and see, what the inner child is saying really about us. I deserve to be more self-focused. I deserve to be present with myself. I deserve to not abandon myself and actually show up for the things that are nourishing for me, that turn me on, that excite me, that are fulfilling, that cultivate my radiance and my vitality, right? So all the things that we could put on someone else, we get to turn the mirror toward us, look at what we're feeling about someone else or what we're feeling an ache around is really illuminating for us some right or some nourishment or some resource that we can deliver to ourselves. And this isn't to say that we should tolerate abuse or intentional harm, or that we don't have a right to actually have people helping us. We do. And in some moments that is not available. And at the root of it, it is about you being able to provide that for yourself, because if you cannot provide that for yourself, you will always be seeking it outside yourself from someone or something else. And that will always let you down, because there's no root system, there's no foundation. So the tree will just constantly fall over in the wind always. Right? So we have to establish the root system, and we have to then build a mycelial network under the ground from the root system. And that is the community, and that is the people that can really meet us, and the people that are whole and that can, actually show up for us in the ways that we desire to meet those original core wounds and to help us metabolize and integrate some of the shadow back into our human wholeness and psychological wholeness and emotional and somatic wholeness. And this goes very deep, and I could keep talking and talking, but my little one is creating a huge mess right now with his mud kitchen and his breakfast smoothie, and I do need to feed him and feed myself, because that is part of not abandoning myself. But I do want to say that, as I've said a few times already, I touch on this work in a variety of different ways. And one way that I think is so invaluable, and it might even be the most essential way, beyond the conversations, beyond the intellectual processing, beyond the analysis, is the somatic metabolism and surfacing of some of these truths through movement. Because movement clears the channel. Movement helps us to get out of the mind and into the soma, into the body, where most of the trauma and the information lives and is encoded through our lifetime, through our birth stories and birth experiences, and through the epigenetic codes in our DNA from the lived experiences of our ancestors. So some of the things that we feel, the ways that we might be activated, we might not even be able to analyze them or understand why they're presenting themselves the way that they are, because we don't have a lived experience that really seems significant, but our body is having a huge reaction. Our nervous system is having a huge reaction. And that's because were lived experiences by our ancestors, and that information got coded in our DNA. So we have a response to something that we didn't even experience. And so movement is a way that we can warm up, dilate, lubricate, hydrate, and allow this information to rise up and emerge and process and be shed or expelled or expired or respired or expressed or sweat out, to be energetically processed. Oh, sure, I can turn this on. And in some cases, it does come into the light of our awareness, into the light of our consciousness, through the movement. But that isn't even always necessary, right? Sometimes it just needs to move and it needs to leave the body. Sometimes it needs to surface to be reclaimed and, yes, lights, to be reclaimed and reintegrated into our wholeness. And I think it's the best when all of the above happens, right? When it surfaces, when it comes into the light of our consciousness, when it moves through, when what wants to be shed and released is shed and released.
Blood.
You have a little scab. There was blood. So movement and dance. And when I say dance, I teach all sorts of dance. I teach choreographed dance and sensual dance. And I also hold space for movement. It is a bracelet. I hold space for movement through authentic movement and ritualistic movement and strange organic movement that is not necessarily pretty and not meant to be pretty. It is a form of somatic experiencing and somatic processing and emotional and energetic processing and metabolism in a way that invites our bodies and our psyches and our whole emotional landscape and our whole psychological landscape and our understanding of self and these dimensions of the inner child and the wise future one that is wild and knows how everything works out in the end, are able to all come into the integrity and resource the ego and invite us into more of ourselves in the here and now, and to have a nourishing and devoted and fluent practice with that kind of work always, and to also then be in right relationship with and fluent conversation with source consciousness, divine intelligence that made us, that is encoded in us, and to be able to receive the insight and the wisdom from our soul and from spirit that wants to move through, that isn't all gunked up by all of this trauma and all of these original wounds, but helps us to shine a light onto those original wounds and look at those traumas and befriend them and get closer to them and explore them with curiosity. And so a lot of the work that I do is also expanding the nervous system capacity to do this, because it's not always easy. It's almost never easy to do any of this. And it is not necessarily meant to be quote unquote safe. It can be very destabilizing to us, and that's part of what it is meant to do, actually, in small doses, not like overwhelm us and destabilize us in a way where we become suicidal or we harm ourselves or we go down really dangerous paths and risky paths in our lives, but that we do take some level of healthy risk, that we do experience some significant discomfort, and that we have the capacity to be with that and hold that and tend that and sift through that and sort through that and feel it more. And so working with my potions is one way that I do that. Creating rituals is one way that I do that. Providing counseling is one way that I do that. Yes, you don't need the balm right now. We're gonna have a snack in a minute, and then we can put balm on later. Mama's gonna finish her call, and then we'll go do that. So, yes. So I believe that our original wounding is not meant to be avoided. It is a catalyst. It is encoded. It is something that is gifted to us from source and spirit and soul. And it is something that we want to resource well. And whole, well, generative, maternal, value-centered cultures that help people to mature into elderhood in terms of their psyches and their emotions, and cultures that are creative and that foster creative life force to move through vitally and to be in relationship with source consciousness, God energy, goddess energy, the primordial pool of the uncreated, where all information and all wisdom and all intelligence that has created this entire universe and every single one of us, including this gorgeous being that is drinking milk from my body, my divine body my divine body that makes magical milk for his growth and nourishment. That is something to be in relationship to and to learn from, and it is essentially us as well. And so when we can look at the original wounding, the initial experiences that bring us aches and pains and beauty. Yes, we're gonna wrap it up. Do you want any more milk? Stop banging your head like a wild man. Do you want more milk while I finish my call? Are we ready to go? Yes. So, if you want to explore more of this with me, let's set up a session or multiple sessions. I love to work with people across an arc of at least 3 sessions, and more is better. Working with people for a year at a time is profound. And the creative expression and flow state and source wisdom that gets to move through as a result of that has been really profound to watch. Purchase my Erotic Empress course. That's a really great way to explore all of this. And it's a pre-recorded course. You can take it at your own pace. It's something that I suggest doing once a month. That's the way that it is set up and designed. And that will help you to align with the timings and the energies and the rhythms of nature and the moon phases, and see how some of what is emerging in your being is reflected by those natural cycles and rhythms. And like I'm saying, at the start of this video, that what's going on in the skies is going to stir up stuff in our animal body and in our psyches, because those things are not separate from nature. It's all one. So that is a beautiful course. You could take it at your own pace. It's available for purchase now. I'll put the information in the comments so that you can just go to the landing page for it, and you can purchase one ritual at a time. You can sign up for a monthly payment plan so that you can get the entire series of 13 rituals by paying for it monthly. Please, more milk? Okay, this one? This boob? We've decided we want to go back and forth between the boobs lately. So, or you can pay for it. You can pay for it in full. You can pay for it monthly, or you could buy one ritual at a time individually a la carte, if that's something that you want to just kind of test the waters. I think that's all for now. Keep your eyes peeled for more from me and more offerings from me that are coming. Obviously, this is my main offering into the world right now and my main work, and so those are the ways that I am showing up and what I have available now, and more will come when it is the right time. Thank you for being here with me. Daddy. And please comment, please share, please tell me more about what resonated for you. Share your questions, share your expression, share videos of you dancing, share videos of or photos of your personal practices in ripening your relationship to Source and Eros. Anything. I'm so here for it. Drop it in the comments, share this post, DM me, email me, however you feel inspired to connect and to amplify this. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you somewhere more intimately soon.